ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a conversation or a relationship, feeling frustrated, tired, and emotionally drained? You've tried your best to communicate, yet the message never quite lands. The response is always evasive, and you're left wondering why it is so difficult to connect with others on a deeper, more meaningful level. Perhaps you've been chasing something. Approval, affection, validation. Yet despite your best efforts, the result is always the same: disappointment and frustration. We live in a world where constant connectivity is both a blessing and a curse. Our phones are buzzing, our inboxes are full, and social media is a constant stream of messages, notifications, and images, each pulling us further into the noise. We have become so accustomed to chasing validation, to sending messages hoping for a response, to playing games in the hopes of securing love, attention, or approval. But what if I told you that there is another way? What if I told you that the path to emotional freedom, self-respect, and peace lies in the wisdom of an ancient philosophy, Stoicism, that teaches us to reject the very things that bind us in these cycles of emptiness? This is not a call to withdraw from relationships or to stop communicating altogether. On the contrary, it's about freeing ourselves from the chains of dependency on external validation, on chasing after things that are fleeting and uncertain. Stoicism, at its core, teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go. It teaches us to accept the reality of our lives, including our relationships, with clarity and without the need to beg for attention, chase after love, or play games for affection. The philosophy of Stoicism, rooted in the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, offers us a powerful tool to navigate this modern world, which is often ruled by messages, games, and endless desires. Stoicism urges us to let go of the need for constant validation and to cultivate inner peace through the mastery of our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. To begin with, we must understand that the need to send messages constantly, whether through our phones, through social media, or even in real-life conversations, is often a sign of an unexamined life. We live in a world where we expect instantaneous responses, where silence is considered awkward, and where the absence of constant communication is seen as neglect. But Stoicism teaches us to embrace silence, to find peace in the stillness, and to understand that the only messages we need to hear are the ones that come from within. Consider for a moment the emotional toll that comes from sending messages, waiting for a response, and feeling frustrated when that response never comes. We invest so much energy into these exchanges, yet we have little control over the outcome. In the realm of Stoicism, we are taught to focus only on what is within our control. The words we choose to speak, the actions we take, and the way we respond to others. If someone fails to reply to our messages, it is not a reflection of our worth, but simply a sign that we cannot control the actions of others. This is liberating. The Stoic realizes that their value is not dependent on the approval or response of others, but on their own character and integrity. Furthermore, the act of begging for attention or affection is another form of self-imposed suffering. When we beg, we place our happiness in the hands of others, waiting for them to meet our needs and desires. But what if we stopped begging and started standing firm in our own self-worth? What if we acknowledged that no one else can fill the void within us, and that true fulfillment comes only from within? Stoicism teaches us that our happiness does not come from others, it comes from our own virtue, from our ability to live in accordance with reason, to act with wisdom, and to respond to challenges with equanimity. When we stop begging for validation, we begin to reclaim our power. We no longer place our happiness in the hands of others, but in our own ability to remain steadfast in our values, regardless of external circumstances. Similarly, the idea of chasing after someone or something, whether it be love, success, or recognition, often leads to disappointment and frustration. We chase after things that are outside our control, hoping that they will bring us the happiness we seek. But in doing so, we ignore the one thing that is always within our control: our own response to life. The Stoic teaches us to focus on the present moment, to take action based on virtue and reason, and to let go of the need to chase after things that are not ours to control. To chase after something is to live in a state of longing, of yearning for something we believe we lack. But the Stoic teaches us that we are already complete, that we possess within ourselves everything we need to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. By letting go of the chase, we free ourselves from the tyranny of desire and come to realize that happiness is not something we can obtain from the outside world, but something we cultivate within. Finally, we come to the idea of playing games. Whether it's playing mind games in relationships or manipulating situations to get our way, playing games is a reflection of insecurity and a lack of trust in ourselves and others. Stoicism urges us to embrace honesty and authenticity in all our interactions. When we stop playing games, we stop hiding behind masks, and we start showing up as our true selves. We no longer need to manipulate or deceive, because we trust that our true character is enough. We no longer feel the need to play games, because we know that the only thing that matters is our own integrity and our ability to live in accordance with our values. In a world that is increasingly dominated by messages, begging, chasing, and games, Stoicism offers us a powerful antidote. It teaches us to focus on what we can control: our own thoughts, actions, and attitudes, and to let go of the need to control others or the outcomes of our efforts. It reminds us that true peace and happiness come not from external sources, but from within. By embracing the principles of Stoicism, we can free ourselves from the cycles of frustration and disappointment that come from chasing after things outside our control. We can stop begging for validation, stop playing games for affection, and stop sending endless messages in search of connection. Instead, we can cultivate a deep sense of inner peace, knowing that we are enough just as we are. This is the power of Stoicism. It allows us to live in harmony with ourselves and with the world around us, free from the need for constant validation, approval, or attention. It teaches us to trust in our own abilities, to live with purpose and integrity, and to respond to life's challenges with wisdom and equanimity. When we embrace these teachings, we find ourselves no longer bound by the endless cycle of messages, begging, chasing, and games. We are free to live as we truly are, whole, complete, and at peace with ourselves. And so, my friends, the choice is yours. You can continue chasing after external validation, playing games, and sending endless messages in the hope that they will bring you fulfillment. Or you can choose to embrace the teachings of Stoicism, to let go of what you cannot control, and to find peace in the wisdom of living authentically and in accordance with your own values. The path to inner freedom, peace, and happiness is right before you. Will you choose it? Have you ever paused, even for a moment, and reflected on the chaos that surrounds us in today's world? The constant buzz of notifications, the unending stream of messages, the endless chase for approval, affection, and validation. Where does it all lead? We live in an age where we are more connected than ever before, yet many of us feel more isolated, misunderstood, and anxious than we could have ever imagined. In this environment, it's easy to fall into patterns of behavior that only serve to trap us in cycles of frustration and emotional exhaustion. The desire to constantly send messages, to check our phones for replies, to chase after love, attention, or success, and to engage in games of manipulation or control, these are all symptoms of a deeper issue. The issue is one of misplaced values, a lack of clarity, and a misunderstanding of where true fulfillment lies. In this speech, I want to invite you to explore an alternative approach, a way of living that transcends the modern-day obsession with external validation and emotional manipulation. This approach comes from a philosophy that has stood the test of time, offering guidance for how to live a life of peace, purpose, and emotional freedom. This philosophy is called virtue. Stoicism is life. The idea of no messages, no begging, no chasing, and no games is a powerful one. It may seem counterintuitive in a world that thrives on constant communication and constant effort to gain favor. But what if the key to true happiness, inner peace, and emotional freedom lies in precisely the opposite? Disconnecting from the need for validation, giving up on chasing things outside our control, and eliminating the need to manipulate or play games. What if we could find fulfillment in a place where we no longer had to beg, chase, or play along with the endless cycles of emotional drama that so many of us find ourselves caught in? To understand how we can achieve this freedom, we must first examine the core of Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to focus on what is within our control and to let go of what is beyond our control. Stoicism, founded by the philosopher Zeno of Citium in the 3rd century BCE, has been embraced by countless individuals throughout history for its practical wisdom in dealing with the challenges of life. Stoicism teaches us that the key to living a good life is not in the external circumstances we find ourselves in, but in the way we respond to those circumstances. It urges us to focus on our own actions, thoughts, and emotions while accepting that the actions of others, the events of the world, and the outcomes of our efforts. At the heart of this philosophy is the understanding that we cannot control the messages we send and receive, but we can control how we respond to them. We live in a world where messaging has become second nature. It's an easy and quick way to communicate, but it also creates a sense of urgency and expectation. When we send a message, we wait for a reply. When we don't get the response we expect, we often experience frustration, disappointment, or even anxiety. The need for instant gratification, for constant acknowledgement, can be overwhelming. But Stoicism teaches us that our worth is not determined by the responses we receive from others. The silence or the delay in response is not a reflection of who we are, but a reflection of others' circumstances, values, or priorities. The Stoic responds with composure, knowing that their own happiness does not depend on the reply, but on their own inner peace and sense of self-worth. This brings us to the idea of begging for attention, begging for affection, begging for recognition. The act of begging, whether it's in relationships, at work, or in social settings, arises from a place of insecurity. It's a way of placing our emotional well-being into the hands of others, hoping that they will give us what we desire, what we think we need to feel whole. But here's the truth: you are whole, complete, and enough, just as you are. When we beg for validation, we are acknowledging that we don't believe in our own worth. We are looking for others to fill the gaps that can only be filled by our own self-acceptance. The Stoic teaches us that true fulfillment comes not from the approval of others, but from the recognition of our own inner virtue, our ability to live with integrity, wisdom, and purpose. We don't need to beg for love or recognition because we already know that we are worthy of both, simply by being true to ourselves. The next trap many of us fall into is chasing after someone's affection, chasing after success, chasing after the next big thing. We chase because we believe that what we are pursuing will complete us, fulfill us, or make us happy. We look outside ourselves for the missing pieces, thinking that they can only be found in someone else, in a promotion, in material wealth, or in social status. But Stoicism tells us a different story. It teaches us that happiness is not found in the chase, but in the stillness, in the contentment that arises from accepting who we are and where we are in life. The Stoic understands that there is nothing inherently wrong with pursuing goals or seeking connection with others. However, the Stoic also understands that these things are not the source of true happiness. Happiness comes from cultivating a sense of peace and fulfillment from within, regardless of what we achieve or how others treat us. When we stop chasing, we stop running away from our own lives and start living fully in the present moment. Finally, we come to the idea of games of manipulation, of power plays, of strategic moves designed to secure affection or attention. Playing games in relationships, whether romantic, professional, or social, is often a sign of insecurity, distrust, or a lack of confidence in one's own worth. We play games because we fear being vulnerable, because we want to control the outcome, or because we want to protect ourselves from being hurt. But Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in authenticity. The Stoic does not need to play games because they understand that their value is not determined by the outcome of any interaction. They live with integrity and authenticity, acting in accordance with their values and principles, regardless of the response they receive from others. They do not need to manipulate or control because they trust that the right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances will come in due time, as long as they continue to act with virtue and wisdom. As we reflect on these aspects of Stoicism, no messages, no begging, no chasing, no games, we begin to realize that the key to a fulfilling life is not in the endless pursuit of external validation or in the emotional roller coaster of seeking approval. True fulfillment comes from within. It comes from living in accordance with reason, from cultivating a strong inner character, and from embracing the reality of what we can and cannot control. We are not victims of our circumstances, we are the architects of our own happiness. In a world filled with distractions, noise, and emotional manipulation, Stoicism offers us a path to freedom. It teaches us to focus on what we can control, to let go of the need for external validation, and to embrace our own inherent worth. By practicing Stoicism, we can break free from the cycles of begging, chasing, and playing games, and find peace in the knowledge that we are enough just as we are. And so, my friends, I urge you to consider this path one of emotional freedom, self-respect, and inner peace. The philosophy of Stoicism is not a call to detach from the world, but a call to engage with it in a more mindful, intentional way. When we stop chasing, begging, and playing games, we open ourselves to a life of clarity, purpose, and fulfillment. We can find the true meaning of happiness not in the pursuit of others' approval, but in the acceptance of ourselves as we are. This is the Stoic way, and it is a way that leads to peace, wisdom, and lasting joy. In conclusion, as you leave this place today, remember that the message you seek, the approval you desire, the validation you long for, all of these are fleeting. But the strength and peace that come from embracing Stoicism, from living with integrity and wisdom, are eternal. Stop chasing what is beyond your control, stop begging for affection, and stop playing games that only bring heartache. Instead, turn inward. Cultivate your own character, live according to your values, and let the world respond to you as it will. In doing so, you will find the peace and freedom that so many others are still desperately searching for. Thank you. In this fast-paced, constantly connected world, we often find ourselves tethered to expectations, judgments, and the endless demands of others. The ceaseless buzzing of our phones, the constant barrage of messages and notifications, the unspoken expectations in our personal and professional relationships, and the unrelenting chase for approval and recognition, these are all part of the modern human experience. We find ourselves constantly seeking something: validation, attention, love, or success. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why am I chasing this? What is it that I truly seek? And more importantly, does this pursuit really bring me fulfillment, or is it just another cycle of longing, frustration, and disappointment? We have become prisoners of our own desires, trapped in cycles of chasing after things that are fleeting, elusive, and often entirely out of our control. And yet, despite all the effort, all the striving, and all the seeking, we often end up feeling empty, disillusioned, and emotionally drained. But what if I told you that the key to a more peaceful, fulfilling, and meaningful life lies not in the chase, not in the pursuit of external validation or approval, but in the embrace of a profound, time-tested philosophy, Stoicism? Stoicism, an ancient Greek school of philosophy founded by Zeno of Citium in the 3rd century BCE, offers us a radically different way of living, one that challenges the very assumptions upon which much of modern life is built. Stoicism teaches us that the source of true happiness, peace and fulfillment does not lie in external circumstances or the approval of others, but in our own thoughts, actions and attitudes. It calls on us to focus on what we can control and to relinquish our attachment to things that are beyond our control. In essence, Stoicism teaches us to stop chasing after fleeting desires, to stop begging for validation, and to stop playing the games that so often govern our relationships and our interactions with the world. Now, the idea of no messages, no begging, no chasing, no games might sound radical in today's world. It goes against the grain of everything we've been taught. After all, aren't we supposed to be striving, working hard, seeking success, building relationships and chasing our dreams? Isn't the idea of constantly messaging, of engaging in conversations, of seeking others' attention, of putting ourselves out there to be noticed, a sign of ambition, connection and desire fulfillment? The truth, however, is that this constant striving, this relentless chase, is often the very thing that holds us back from finding peace and happiness. It's a cycle that keeps us stuck in patterns of neediness, anxiety and frustration. But how do we break free? How do we stop chasing, stop begging, stop playing games, and instead live a life of true inner peace and self-respect? Let us begin with the concept of no messages. In our digital age, communication has become easier than ever before. With just a few taps, we can send a message to anyone in the world. It's a convenient way to stay in touch, to express our thoughts, and to maintain relationships. But with this convenience comes a hidden danger, the need for constant connection and instant response. How many times have you sent a message only to find yourself anxiously awaiting a reply? Perhaps you've felt a rush of excitement when you see that the recipient has read your message, only to be disappointed when no reply comes. Or perhaps you've spent hours crafting the perfect message, only to be left wondering why your effort wasn't met with the response you hoped for. The constant back and forth, the waiting, the anticipation, can create a sense of emotional dependence on the responses we receive. But in the philosophy of Stoicism, the Stoic does not depend on others for their sense of peace or happiness. They understand that the only thing they can truly control is their own actions and thoughts. If someone does not respond to our message, it is not a reflection of our worth, but simply a result of circumstances beyond our control. The Stoic accepts this reality and refrains from being emotionally dependent on the outcome of messages. They know that their value is not determined by the replies they receive, but by their own character, integrity, and self-respect. In this way, they free themselves from the constant need for external validation and find peace in their own self-sufficiency. Next, we turn to the idea of no begging. The act of begging, whether it is begging for attention, love, affection, or approval, stems from a place of insecurity. When we beg, we place our emotional well-being into the hands of others, hoping that they will fill the void within us. We believe that their response, their approval, or their affection is what we need to feel validated, worthy, and complete. But this is an illusion. The truth is that no one can give us what we are not willing to give ourselves. Stoicism teaches us that true fulfillment comes not from external sources, but from within. It comes from living in accordance with virtue, acting with wisdom, and aligning our actions with our values. When we beg for attention or validation, we are allowing others to control our emotional state. But the Stoic realizes that their happiness is not dependent on the approval of others. Their worth is not determined by what others think or feel, but by their own character and ability to live virtuously. In relationships, for example, the Stoic does not beg for affection or approval. Instead, they approach relationships from a place of self-respect and integrity, offering love, care, and respect without expecting anything in return. They understand that true love and connection are based on mutual respect, not on the desperate need for validation or attention. By letting go of the need to beg, the Stoic frees themselves from the emotional turmoil that often accompanies such behavior and instead cultivates healthy, balanced relationships grounded in authenticity and mutual respect. The third concept we must explore is no chasing. In today's world, we are constantly encouraged to chase after something: success, love, recognition, wealth, status, or approval. We are taught that the key to happiness lies in the pursuit of these external goals. But the Stoic perspective offers us a radically different view. Stoicism teaches us that happiness is not something to be chased after, but something to be cultivated from within. When we chase something, we are essentially acknowledging that we do not believe we have it already. We are telling ourselves that we are incomplete and that we need something external to make us whole. The Stoic, however, understands that they are already complete. They do not need to chase after anything because they know that true fulfillment comes from living a life of virtue, wisdom, and purpose. This does not mean that the Stoic rejects goals or ambitions. It simply means that they approach these goals with equanimity, without becoming emotionally attached to the outcome. They pursue their goals because they are aligned with their values, not because they believe that achieving them will bring them happiness. By stopping the chase, the Stoic frees themselves from the anxiety and frustration that often accompany the pursuit of things outside their control. Finally, we come to the idea of no games. In many relationships, romantic, professional, or social, people engage in games. These games may involve manipulation, power plays, or emotional manipulation in order to get what we want. We may play these games in an attempt to control the outcome or to protect ourselves from vulnerability. But the Stoic rejects the need for games. They understand that true strength lies in authenticity and integrity. The Stoic does not need to manipulate or deceive in order to get what they want. They approach relationships and interactions with honesty and transparency, knowing that the right people and the right opportunities will come in due time. By playing games, we are essentially denying our own authenticity and self-worth. We are hiding behind masks, pretending to be someone we are not in order to gain the approval or affection of others. But the Stoic embraces their true self, trusting that their value does not depend on external validation, but on their ability to live in accordance with virtue and wisdom. When we stop playing games, we can engage in relationships and interactions with authenticity and clarity. We no longer need to manipulate or control the outcome because we trust that the right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances will come to us naturally. As we reflect on the teachings of Stoicism, no messages, no begging, no chasing, no games, we begin to realize that true happiness, peace, and fulfillment lie not in the pursuit of external validation or in the manipulation of others, but in the cultivation of inner virtue, wisdom, and self-respect. By focusing on what we can control and letting go of what is beyond our control, we can free ourselves from the emotional turmoil and frustration that so often comes from chasing after things that are fleeting and out of our hands. And so, my friends, I ask you to consider the path of Stoicism, the path of inner peace, authenticity, and self-respect. The path that leads to freedom from the constant chase for approval, attention, and validation. The path that allows us to live fully in the present moment without the need for messages, begging, chasing, or games. Will you take that path? Will you embrace the wisdom of Stoicism and find peace within yourself, regardless of the external circumstances? The choice is yours. Thank you.